What if your entire life was built on a lie? What if the goals you chase, the relationships you tolerate, even the you show to the world weren't really yours? What if your whole life was just a carefully crafted mask, and the real you has been locked away, forgotten, behind a forbidden gate inside your own mind? If that thought hits a nerve, stay with me, because this isn't just philosophy. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, believed that ignoring this inner world is how we end up living only half a life where you function, you perform, you do all the right things, and yet, deep down, you feel empty, like a ghost of who you were meant to be. This video is about that inner place, the place Jung hinted at, and ancient wisdom traditions hinted at thousands of years before him. We're going to call it the Forbidden Garden of your mind, and together we'll explore why this garden is forbidden, who guards its gate, a controversial key that some people use to unlock it, and most importantly, what you're supposed to do with what you find there. Let's start with a question. Have you ever felt like you're secretly living someone else's life? You say yes, while every cell in your body is screaming no. You smile for photos, while a heavy emptiness sits in your chest. On paper, everything looks fine. Inside, something feels profoundly off. That feeling isn't random. And it might not mean you're broken. It might mean you're waking up. To understand this forbidden garden, we need to meet the two cartographers of the soul. One of them you know, Carl Gustav Jung. The other lives more in myth than in history, Hermes Trismegistus. Let's start with Jung. Imagine a psychiatrist who doesn't just sit with patients and ask, "So, how do you feel?" He studies dreams. He dives into myths from all over the world. He experiments on his own mind, writing down his visions and conversations with strange inner figures, like scenes from a movie. That was Jung. He wasn't satisfied with the idea that the mind is just logic, memory, and behavior. He suspected there was something much bigger under the surface. He suggested that your psyche has layers. At the top, your conscious mind, the I you think you are. Just beneath, your personal unconscious, your forgotten memories, emotions, complexes, and even deeper, something bold he called the collective unconscious, a shared psychological layer that all humans participate in. Think of it like this. Your personal story is one tab in the browser, but there's also the server, the deep code that shapes how every story on that system loads. Jung believed that inside this deeper layer there are ancient patterns of story and behavior, which he called archetypes. You've met them your whole life. The hero, in every movie where someone must face a trial and transform. The mother, the nurturing, protective force, or sometimes the smothering one. The wise old man, woman, the mentor, guide, the Gandalf or Yoda who appears at the right moment. The trickster, the one who breaks rules and exposes the truth through chaos. You see them in mythology, religion, fairy tales, Marvel movies, Netflix shows, because they're not just out there. They're in here, built into how the human mind organizes experience. Now, rewind thousands of years. Long before Jung, a stream of ancient wisdom called Hermeticism was exploring inner and outer worlds in its own symbolic way. Tradition attributes these teachings to a legendary figure, Hermes Trismegistus, a kind of mythical fusion of the Greek Hermes and the Egyptian Thoth. One of the core Hermetic principles is a sentence you might have heard. As above, so below. As within, so without. So what does that actually mean? Very simply, the patterns of the universe and the patterns of the human soul mirror each other. The outer world and inner world aren't totally separate. If you want to understand one, you can study the other. For Hermetic thinkers, the ultimate quest was something they called the Great Work. On the surface, it looked like they were trying to turn lead into gold. But on a deeper level, they were talking about alchemical transformation of the soul, turning the heavy, unconscious lead of our raw self into the gold of a conscious, integrated being. Sound familiar? Jung saw this and said, "Yes, that's what I'm trying to do with psychology." He called this process individuation, not becoming special, not becoming perfect, but becoming whole, bringing the split-off parts of yourself back into relationship, becoming the person you truly are beneath the scripts you were handed. So both the modern scientist, Jung, and the ancient sage, Hermes, were pointing to the same unsettling truth. Your inner world is not a footnote to your life. Your inner world writes the script. If you don't explore it, it still runs the show. You just call it fate. So what exactly is this forbidden garden? Picture this. You walk through a forest at dusk. In front of you, an old stone wall runs through the trees. In the middle of that wall, an iron gate, half covered in vines. On the other side, you can just barely see lantern light, flowers, and shapes moving in the shadows. You know there is something alive in there, but there's also a sign nailed to the gate. Do not enter. Dangerous. Keep out. This is your unconscious, and more specifically, it's the part of your unconscious you've learned to reject. The parts of you that don't fit your image, the impulses you decided were bad, the feelings you were punished for, the desires you were ashamed of. Every forbidden garden has a gatekeeper. For Jung, that gatekeeper is the shadow. The shadow is not a monster living out there somewhere. It's the parts of you that you've locked away. The anger you weren't allowed to show as a kid. The jealousy you pretend you never feel. The vulnerability you cover up with being the competent one. The weirdness, the wildness, the sexuality, the creativity that didn't fit the image you thought you had to maintain. From the outside, you might look like you've got it all together, but inside, there's a locked storage room full of unacceptable you. Here's the twist. The shadow is not just where you dump your bad stuff, it's also where your gold is hiding. The courage you never expressed, the creativity you never owned, the power you were afraid of, the honest no you swallowed 1,000 times. If you've ever had this strange feeling like there is more of me, but I don't know where it is, you're feeling the shadow through the wall. Now here's where it gets dangerous. When we don't recognize our own shadow, we don't stop using it. We just throw it on other people. You know that coworker or person you hate for no logical reason. Someone whose very existence makes you angry. Often they're carrying a trait that you have exiled in yourself. You can't stand the loud, arrogant colleague. Maybe you've buried your own healthy assertiveness so deep that any version of it triggers you. You harshly judge a certain group of people for being lazy, selfish, dramatic. Sometimes that's your unlived life speaking. The part of you that wishes it could rest more, say no, or ask for help. Jung's warning was simple and brutal. If you don't face your shadow, it doesn't disappear. It runs your life from behind the scenes. That's when you see self-sabotage you can't explain, Sudden explosions of anger out of nowhere, addictions that numb feelings you refuse to feel, chronic imposter syndrome because you're living against half of who you really are. You feel like you're living half a life because half of you has been banished. The solution is not to kill the shadow. You can't. The solution is something called shadow work. Shadow work means turning around, looking at what you've been running from, and asking, what are you trying to tell me? What do you need? What part of me have I abandoned here? It's not comfortable. It's not pretty. But it's the only way to reclaim the pieces of your soul you left behind. That's what it means to enter the forbidden garden. So here's the real question. If this inner garden is locked and the shadow guards the door, how do you open it? Jung developed a method he called active imagination. Don't let the fancy names scare you. The idea is simple. You close your eyes, relax your body, let images, scenes, or characters from your inner world arise. And instead of ignoring them, you interact with them. You talk to them. You ask them questions. You let them answer however they want, not how your ego wants. It's like dreaming while awake and actually having a conversation with the dream. This is one key. But through history, humans have tried other keys too, especially plants that alter consciousness. And here, we step into controversial territory. One plant is especially relevant right now because it's being legalized or decriminalized in more and more places, including Germany, cannabis. Now, this is crucial. This video is not medical advice. I'm not telling you to use cannabis. I'm not saying it's safe for everyone, especially if you're underage, pregnant, or have a personal or family history of serious mental health issues like psychosis, bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia. This can be dangerous, and you must talk to a professional, not a YouTube video. What I want to do here is explore a psychological perspective, not give instructions. From a Jungian lens, you can think of cannabis not as something that creates a new self, but as something that can soften the grip of the ego for a while. The ego is your inner security guard. It keeps control. It says, don't think that, don't feel that. That's not who you are. When that grip gets looser, contents from the unconscious, memories, emotions, archetypal images can float closer to the surface. That's why the range of experiences is so wide. One person feels relaxed, open, connected. Another feels anxious, paranoid, or overwhelmed. The plant isn't inventing your psyche out of thin air. It's amplifying and revealing parts of what's already moving in the background, for better or worse. And that for worse part is important. If you're already on shaky psychological ground or you don't have support, this can go very wrong. Used unconsciously, cannabis can become just another escape. Scrolling, gaming, drinking, but leafy. Used consciously, some people find it can function like a catalyst for shadow work, easing the door open so they can feel long-buried emotions, see patterns in their life more clearly, or sense their inner symbols and stories. But, and this is the big but, a key is useless if you don't know how to turn it. This is where that famous phrase comes in, set and setting. It comes from psychedelic research, but it applies here too. Set means your mindset. Why are you doing this? Are you trying to escape your life, or are you trying to understand it more deeply? A simple intention like, show me what I need to see about myself, can completely change the quality of the experience. Setting means your environment. Where are you? With who? A noisy party with people you barely know is one kind of setting. A quiet, safe room with a notebook and maybe one trusted friend who respects the process is a very different thing. Again, this is not a how-to guide. It's a reminder that if someone is going to work with altered states at all, they need to do it with respect, caution, and awareness of the risks, or not do it at all. And honestly, most people already have access to completely legal, safe keys: meditation, breathwork, therapy, deep journaling, dream work, body work, art, music, silence. You don't need any substance to enter the garden, but if you do work with one, it must be held as something serious, not a toy. If this is resonating so far and it's sparking ideas or questions in you, consider hitting like and subscribe so you don't miss the next dives into this topic. It also tells the algorithm, hey, more people need to see this. Now, let's say the gate opens. What happens then? Imagine this. The garden gate creaks open. You step inside. The air is heavier, quieter. You see strange plants glowing faintly in the dusk. Some are beautiful. Some look twisted, thorny, dangerous. Each plant, each creature, each symbol is a part of you. Maybe you see a child sitting alone by a tree. Maybe you see a furious animal pacing behind a fence. Maybe you see a mask hanging from a branch, the exact mask you wear at work or in your family. In an inner journey, whether through meditation, a powerful therapy session, a deep dream, or an altered state, these things usually appear as feelings, images, and thoughts. A sudden wave of grief, a memory you haven't thought about in years, a clear image, a cage, a door, an ocean, a burning house, a sentence that drops into your mind like a message. Rule number 1 in this territory: stay curious, stay kind. When a difficult emotion rises, sadness, shame, fear, anger, the habit is to push it away. Nope, not dealing with that. Scroll, distract, eat, smoke, work. Instead, try this. Notice where you feel it in your body. Breathe into that place and silently ask, what are you here to tell me? When was the first time I felt something like you? What do you need from me right now? If you see a frightening figure in an inner vision, a monster, a judge, a bully, pause before you run. Ask, who are you in me? What are you protecting? What would happen if I listened to you instead of fighting you? This is active imagination in simple language. You're building a relationship with the exiled parts of your psyche, and your journal becomes your best friend here. Have a notebook beside you. During or after the experience, write down the images you saw, the sentences you heard, the feelings you felt, the insights that flashed. Don't worry about spelling, grammar, or sounding smart. You're not writing a book. You're downloading data from the unconscious. Draw what you saw, even if it's ugly, especially if it's ugly. Now we arrive at the part most people skip: integration. An intense inner experience by itself does not change your life. A mind-blowing insight, a mystical vision, a night of tears, these can be important. But without integration, there'll be spiritual souvenirs, pretty stories you tell later. Integration means answering this question. Now that I've seen this, what tiny concrete change will I make in my outer life? For example, if you realized you've been people-pleasing your whole life, maybe your integration step this week is to say one honest no to a small request. If you met your inner child, lonely, scared, ignored, maybe your integration step is to schedule 1 hour just for something playful you loved as a kid. If you saw your anger as a wild animal locked in a cage, maybe your step is to find a safe, healthy way to move that energy. Boxing, running, screaming into a pillow, or expressing a boundary in a calm but firm way. This is where the alchemy happens. You take raw inner lead and slowly turn it into gold in your daily choices. Two big traps Jung warned about live here. One, spiritual bypassing, using spiritual ideas or practices to avoid your real-life problems and emotions. It's all love and light while your nervous system is on fire and your relationships are falling apart. Real inner work goes through the pain, not around it. Two, spiritual inflation. Your ego steals the experience and says, I had this deep vision. I'm more conscious than others now. True transformation usually makes you quieter, humbler, and kinder, not more arrogant. And one more important point, the human brain, especially the parts for judgment and emotional regulation, finishes developing somewhere in the mid-20s. And Jung often emphasized that some forms of deep self-confrontation are best suited to later phases of life, once you have a stable foundation, work, relationships, sense of self. In simple terms, you need a strong enough ego before you start deconstructing it. Let's bring this home. We started with a simple but uncomfortable idea. You might be living a life that does not truly belong to you. A life built around masks you were rewarded for wearing, scripts you were handed as a child, unconscious patterns you never chose. Jung's warning is that if you ignore your inner world, your shadow, your unconscious, your forbidden garden, your life will still be shaped by it. You'll just think that's just the way things are. The ancient Hermetic wisdom and Jungian psychology both point to the same promise. Inside you, beneath the noise and the masks, there is a path toward wholeness, not perfection, not endless positivity, wholeness, a life where you can feel your pain without being owned by it. You can acknowledge your darkness without acting it out unconsciously. You can own your desires, your boundaries, and your true voice. You live from a place that feels real. The Forbidden Garden is not a place of evil. It's the source of your deepest power. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's a part of your soul waiting at the gate, holding pieces of your strength and creativity in its hands. This journey is not something you do one weekend and call it done. It's the great work of a lifetime. You might use meditation. You might use journaling. You might use therapy. You might explore altered states responsibly and with support. You might simply start by paying attention to your dreams. The map is there. The key is in your hand. Even if you never touch a plant, never go on a retreat, never do anything dramatic, the key might be as simple as your willingness to ask, what part of myself have I been running from? What am I tired of pretending not to know? What is waiting for me in my own forbidden garden? The final question isn't, are you brave enough to enter? The real question is, can you afford not to? Because the cost of staying outside that gate is the cost of not fully living your own life. If this sparked something in you, if you feel like there is a forbidden garden inside you, tell me in the comments, what do you sense might be waiting for you there? A feeling, a talent, a buried truth. Your reflection might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to start their own journey. And if you want to delve further into these kinds of inner journeys, Jung, the shadow, and practical tools for working with them, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next step on this path. The garden is waiting.